I'm a local resident of Quinton. Just a quick notice to everybody that this meeting is being recorded, and a recording will be available for future reference. So, going straight into this, I'm going on to straight point number 2 on the agenda, which is policing highway issues in the ward. That is being done announced by Sergeant Mark Short and Marie Brown. Is that correct?
Yeah, can I just jump in there? A couple of apologies. Well, there's an apology from Marie Brown. I hadn't realised that Marie wasn't actually, she's not in the country at the moment. Okay. So she won't be attending the meeting. We have got Stuart Cross from Kia Highway Services who's with us, and I'm waiting for Sergeant Short to join. So I'm going to try and contact him again. He did say he was coming to the meeting, but he hasn't yet joined. So I'll just try and send him an email while we go on to something else, or while he gets Stuart in.
Move on to point number 3, Bevan.
I wouldn't it be best to do Stuart, and then he could go, couldn't he? If he doesn't need to stay, does he? Does that help, Stuart?
I was going to suggest we do Stuart, and then I've got something that was sent to me by Marie. So.
Okay, yes, okay, that's perfect. So if Stuart would like to take the helm and obviously brief us on what's going on with policing and highway issues in the ward.
As she's aware.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Yeah, Stuart Cross, Kia Highways. I recognise a lot of you from his meetings before, so I hope you're all well. So just a few updates, not tons of updates at the moment. You may have noticed we did do some temporary repairs on Quinton Road West last week. This is just that's not the final job. We've just done just a quick repair, just take care of the worst potholes, just to get it through the final weeks until resurfacing in a few months' time. So that's good news. Other works in the ward, we were due to do Quinton Expressway. Unfortunately, that has been delayed, unfortunately, till April now. No particular reason why. It's only, I think these programs do have some flexibility to them, so it's still going to happen. But yeah, that's going to be the first week of April instead, unfortunately. So no other major announcements at the moment. I don't think from the last ward meeting. We have got some, let me just get my list in front of me. So we've got some footway work going on at the moment. So Ridge Acre Road, that's been split into 2 phases. So let me get that in front of me. So yeah, so in Feb, we've got some work on Ridge Acre, as I say, footways from Wolverhampton Road south to World's End. That's to be on both sides, left and right side of a carriageway. And it also is telling me Quinton Road West footways as well. That's now on the programme, although no dates at the moment, so that's good news. But yeah, so that's where we are at the moment. No real developments regarding any of the new works onto the programme. But yeah, a real continuation from where we were last time, really. So any questions or any issues that anybody would like to raise at all? That's good news. I like that.
Can I raise a question very quickly, Stuart? Sorry.
Yes,
just wanted to talk about the Quinton Road West temporary repairs. I drove down a couple of days ago, and I've seen that the long ruts by the police station have been repaired, but further down towards the Quinton Bar and Grill Island, there doesn't seem to have been any temporary repairs done to those very significant holes. So I'm just wondering, is the temporary repair work considered complete on Quinton Road West? Was it only intended to be that section, or are we going to be seeing temporary repairs down the length of the worst potholes before the resurfacing happens in late March?
I would suggest that what we've done, I mean, I did mark up that there's that main section that was my concern that obviously we've taken care of. There are, as you say, a few smaller sections towards the junction that could, I'll be honest, I've been down there for a few weeks for myself, but if there's anything that, I would say this will now be treated like any other carriageway in the city. So if there's anything that my inspector thinks actually that needs emergency repair, that can be done. But the work we carried out recently was just, that's a section we want to really take care of as best we can. But yeah, so there's no more, I think that's about 2-3 days. So there's obviously that tipping point between spending taxpayers' money on work that's not wasted, but yeah, so no more big temporary repairs, but that will be due an inspection in 3 weeks' time. So yeah, then if we need to, we can carry out some repairs before research.
I know we're meeting next week to do a bit of a mooch around the ward and look at some problem areas, but I'm a little concerned that 3 weeks from now takes us towards pretty much the end of February. Resurfacing work is due to be done at the end of March. Fingers crossed it doesn't slip. Can I ask for us to get an inspection done from one of the Kia team of the bottom section of Quinton Road West as an urgent priority before 3 weeks time?
Not a problem at all. Obviously, we've got
Thank you very much.
I know the inspectors spend a lot of time on Quinton, so I'll get there tomorrow, and anywhere we need to intervene, yeah, we can look at that. Not a problem at all, Councillor.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
What's the criteria for when a pothole is sufficiently large enough for you to do a repair, whether it be temporary or permanent?
It's a lot of it is a risk-based approach. So the intervention level is round about 40 mil, I would say. So yeah, 4 centimetres. However, it may be less than that if we were to set it to be outside of the school, possibly, or on a crossing point, or even maybe if it's in a cul-de-sac where there's little traffic, we may monitor it until it gets to a point. But normally anywhere around 40 mil. 40 mil is your top course. As soon as you get past 40 mil, then you go into your sub base, and if you let it get past that depth, then really you're having bigger issues on the road. So the sort of not just Birmingham, but sort of national standard for your main highway roads is about 40-50 mil, I would say.
I'm just wondering, because I know that road quite well, down past Fordwell School, right the way down, and both sides of the carriageways, particularly if you're coming up towards Four Dwellings, that's been bad for more than 12 months, with significant potholes going right the way down to the base, the sub base, and a lot of them are happening where you've got the speed bump.
Yes. Yeah.
On the side. So when you go down, I've had 2 punctures there.
Right, I'm sorry to hear.
But that's by the by. But my question for asking, you're doing all this inspection work now, I presume it's because we've got the Commonwealth Games. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but it seems to be a big push for it. But why on a stretch like that, which is quite a long stretch, do you have that level of damage to the road surface for more than 12 months?
I would say that there has been, just going back to the inspection side, we do have a...
I can understand where you're coming from with when you say about the criteria.
Sure. I mean, what we would do, so there would have been, as part of a regular inspection that we've been doing on these roads since before Kia, back in the Amy days, and work would have been raised. I know for a fact there were lots of jobs on Quinton Road West that we were put on hold because of the upcoming resurfacing. So it's a fine line between managing that risk until, I suppose what we don't want to do is, because at one point we were going to do a large patch of maybe 2,000 metres on Quinton Road West, but then it's felt, well, actually the resurfacing there is only 6 weeks away. That would be completely dug up again within a matter of a month. So as soon as a pothole is identified, the work is raised, and then it will be completed. However, let's be honest, Quinton Road West has been in a poor condition for some time. So yeah, obviously thank you for your patience while we've been getting this resurfacing done. But most roads, if we forget Quinton Road West for 1 second, most roads, providing there's no big streams due, all works are completed within 6 months at the moment, and if not quicker than that. So that's a bonus, to be honest.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart, and thank you, Melanie, for your question. Is that everyone's questions for Stuart?
Elliot's got his hand up.
Yes, Elliot.
Yeah, just a quick one. Are you responsible for the maintenance of the traffic islands and refuges and things as well? Because if so, I want to ask about the dead tree that was supposed to be removed from the one outside the Court Oak last year.
Yes, so if it's, well, I suppose the simple answer is I would say yes. if it's highway maintained land, which the island I think we're talking about, is that one of the very large land?
It's opposite Queen's Park as well.
Okay, yeah. So that would be highway maintained.
It's been on a work list. It's been on a work list for some time, and there are one or two residents who want to go and dig in it and put a few flowers and shrubs in it. And it would be nice to get rid of the dead one first.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do earlier. Well, once I've finished, I'm on my laptop anyway. Give me 5 minutes and I'll drop into the chat if I can find out the tree in question.
Yeah,
I'll chase it.
It's obviously not a priority. It's not offering any danger or anything like that, as far as I can see. But it was on the list last year, and it just seems to sort of slip by. Thank you.
I'll come back to you. No problem. That's fine.
Councillor Stanford, do you have a question?
Thank you very much. I was just going to add for Mel's benefit that we don't want to conflate two things. So it's important to know that there is a programme of major works being carried out on the highway, which includes complete resurfacing of several roads, including Quinton Road West. And then what we're talking about in terms of the patching temporary fixes, they're regular ongoing maintenance. So they're issues that Stuart and Kia will manage on an ongoing basis. And then full resurfacing is what we have to kind of push for on a yearly cycle basis. So I just wanted to clarify that. And Stuart, if it helps to dig that tree issue out, search my name in your inbox. There'll be a couple for the last few months.
No worries. Yeah, leave that with me. I'll have a little dig around now. Not literally, but yeah.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Obviously, has Sergeant Short, Mark Short, appeared yet?
No.
Can I just thank Stuart as well? I think we're keeping him busy because I'm out with him next week as well. So he's got the pleasure of Don's company and then mine. So we'll take him and show him the worst bit. So if anybody in this meeting has got a particular issue with a particular pothole or a particular stretch, if they want to contact either Dominic or myself, and when we're on our little road trip with Stuart, we'll point that out. I know I've got several things from residents, particularly about the footways at the moment. So very happy to hear that.
Okay, no problem.
I think Elliot's got his hand up again, I think.
I nearly escaped.
Or is he fiddling with his monitor?
Okay.
Sorry.
He's fiddling Councillor Booth.
Yeah, okay. Shall I read you the statement that I've had from Marie?
Please do.
Because I specifically asked Sergeant Short and Marie as our constituency engineer to come tonight because I have been most concerned along West Boulevard in Quinton. On the 14th of October, we had a terrible accident which involved a minibus, and 2 young children in that minibus were injured. I had to go to the children's hospital. And then on January the 14th, well, we just hit, that weekend was just dreadful. January the 14th, 2 girls were hit by a car on West Boulevard. And then in the early morning of the 15th, we had that terrible accident outside the pub where Quinton Road West joins West Boulevard. I don't know if you saw it, but in the car park, cars upside down. I mean, it was just absolutely appalling. So I got in touch with Sergeant Short, Inspector Trinder, and with Marie Brown, because we've constantly been bringing up the issue about speeding on Quinton Road West, and we've been told many times that it is beyond belief there haven't been enough accidents. I just felt with that collection from October and then that terrible 2 days in January, so I contacted Marie. Now she's not able to come, but she has sent through Sajid Khan, who works with her, some kind of ideas of possible improvement measures for West Boulevard. So what they have said is the transport strategy team has been requested to include West Boulevard as part of the future expansion programme for average speed enforcement cameras. Hurrah. Birmingham City Council is currently in the process of renegotiating contract with West Midlands Police to enable the continued operation and expansion of average speed enforcement cameras in the city. However, the process of reaching an agreement with the police may take some time. West Boulevard will be considered for those cameras within the context of other priority locations once the revisited contract is agreed later this year. And then a second point, moreover, proposals are also being developed for the installation of 2 vehicle activated signs along West Boulevard. So that is what Marie has sent. And I think just popping into my inbox now, I've had an apology from Sergeant Short, but he's also, I'll try and put my camera on, he's also sent a note, so I'll try and whiz around with my screens, because I sent him some very specific questions, and they were partly in relation to things that had come up in the ward programme, but also in relation to the issues around Wolverhampton Road South and West Boulevard. So if I just read you what he said, apologies for reply via email. I can't seem to get the Teams to load on the works computers. So to give some answers to the questions that I raised. So these questions are ones that came up in previous ward fora. So if I give you those, is that the best way of dealing with this, Phil?
Yes.
As he's not here in person. So in relation to the increase in vehicle crime, as you're probably aware, the force have stated that vehicle crime has increased by 37% and is now a force priority. Therefore, we should be working more towards this. As yet, I've no idea how it will work from within our department, as we don't respond to these jobs. Our role would be to give advice to residents on vehicle security, etc. But watch this space. So what I'll do is I'll follow this evening up with a question to him to just give me a little bit more information about that. Another question I asked him about, which isn't about roads, but was in relation to questions that residents have raised with me several times, more over the summer months, but then I hadn't got a proper answer. So in relation to off-road bikes in the valley, again, he said, we've got issues with policing this as we're only on foot out there and we've got no means of identifying and capturing them. I'd like to be able to put resources into parks to combat this. It will be part of some project that we'll look at in the summer months. Now, I know previously I have asked, because I know they do sometimes use drones. So I've asked if we could have the drones come over on a nice summer evening and see if we can use that. The third point, as a neighbourhood team, we're now running an operation where we follow up with all burglary victims. This is, I was questioning about crime and household robbery and burglary. We follow up with all burglary victims to offer support and reassurance. This is due to the fact we've neglected victims in the past. It's good that he's admitted that. And the force will allocate further resources to areas of high demand for burglaries. This is run under a force operation, and we have a bid for resources at weekly meetings where we'll be bidding against some other areas of the force for potentially traffic support. Right, and then finally comes to about the boulevard. Finally, in relation to the boulevard, I believe that a report has gone to the City Council looking at some sort of speed measures. So this is what Marie's come back with being implemented. We'll request such. However, there has been some disparity between the actual evidence of serious accidents. Well, I don't think we can, you know, there is absolutely no, it's absolute clarity with me that there were 2 boys injured in a minibus on the 14th of October, 2 girls were hit by a car on the 14th of January, and then in the early morning of the 15th of January, we had this huge pile of upside down cars in the park, and I think that was an incident where people had been, well, racing, speeding, and run away. So then, and he's also, he said an invitation will be sent out in the next couple of weeks. Oh, sorry. Finally, our future plans for Quinton will be discussed at our PACT meeting, hopefully in the first week of March. So we'll make sure that we get that information to you. When we get it, we'll make sure Beverly gets out to you, whereby we'll identify 3 priority areas. Information will be sent out in the next couple of weeks. And then again, he said, my apologies for lack of attendance. Okay, so hopefully that is helpful. I'll return to this screen. Hopefully that is helpful. I can see a number of hands up. Do you want to bring those in?
Can I come in, Phil?
If we start with Councillor Stanford, who had his hand up first, I believe.
Great, thank you very much, Phil. Just briefly, I think I'll touch on highways first and then policing, if that's okay. So On the West Boulevard thing, as people will know, it's been ongoing for a very, very long time, this campaign to get speed cameras put in on the West Boulevard. Back in November, myself, councillors John Lyons and Bruce Lyons from Bartley Green, Peter Fowler from Harborne, presented a petition which had several hundred signatures from Bartley Green, Harborne and Quinton residents to the City Council to call for speed cameras to be put in. We should have had a response within a month of that being presented. That has not happened. And now I've sent another chaser to try and get a formal response from that. In the meantime, we have, after the most recent accident, which was obviously a very, very visual accident, which we're still kind of driving past and seeing, so it hasn't been sorted out yet. I know that residents that are here this evening and residents that aren't sent those details across to us as councillors, but also to the City Council directly. And so we raised that as another opportunity with Councillor Wasim Zafar, who's the Cabinet Member in charge of Transport and Highways, raising the issue that this needed more immediate attention. With that, we requested that speed cameras once again be looked at on the West Boulevard. The response which we've had essentially says that the accident collision data doesn't justify speed cameras and that there was only one serious accident within the last 3 years in that space. It's now come to light after some more kind of probing that what the assessment they carried out was actually only on the roundabout itself, as opposed to the stretch of West Boulevard. So we've gone back to Wasim Zafar, highlighting, using the Department for Transport's collision data, every serious incident that has happened, the dates that they happened and so on, to present the case once again that actually the measures need to be brought in because the data does support it. So we're questioning the use of data essentially. But I can't help but express my extreme frustration that we have been passed from pillar to post repeatedly over the last year and a half. From the police initially, who we thought were responsible for speed cameras. We went through the process with the local sergeants, with Mark Short, with Bushra from Harborne. They supported our proposals for cameras. We went through to the local delivery partnership board, I think they're called, for the region, again, to then present it. They put the feasibility report together, and all of that eventually gets bounced back to the council, who have then sat on it and haven't progressed it. Linking that to the flashing speed light signs that are now being proposed, there's a new highways budget, which is called the Local Improvement Fund, which has been announced in the last couple of months, which I'm desperately trying to find out from the council what is eligible, who can apply, and how much money is available. When I put in a request to find out what has been put forward for the Edgbaston constituency as a whole, my request to the council has been treated as a freedom of information request, which is slightly bizarre as an elected councillor that I have to do a freedom of information request to my own council in order to find out information on how to apply for a fund for highways improvements that we've been calling for a very, very long time. So I apologise if I'm coming across fairly abrupt, but I'm losing the will to live dealing with the council and trying to get safety measures put in. And frankly, flashing speed signs are not the answer, and are going to be a waste of resource when we could be spending that money on implementing a useful speed improvement scheme. So that's my little rant over about West Boulevard. We'll still keep pushing. We'll have to get a formal response from the petition that we submitted because that's their legal obligation to do so. And as soon as we've got that, we'll make sure that the residents are aware of what the formal response has been. And equally, once we've got a response from Councillor Zafar, as we've pushed back on the wider collision data, we'll let you know. On the policing front, echoing what Kate has said, it's been good to see that quite a few things that were raised with Inspector Trinder by myself back in, I think, October, are now kind of being put forward, focuses on the crimes that weren't necessarily at the time the focus of the data, but are the focus of residents that we were pushing for. So that's burglaries and that's car theft. So it's really good to see that, and equally pushing for the next packed meeting to be held, ideally on the other side of the ward to where it was last time. So I think we were at Quinton Church. So bringing that back over towards the Harborne side of the ward as well, so that we get good coverage. It's good, and I am still continuing to lobby for a dedicated sergeant for Quinton, as we are still sharing one with Bartley Green, which doesn't seem suitable to me. That is all I wanted to say, really. There's a few schemes that we should be looking at for highways improvements, and as far as I can see, this one on West Boulevard is the only one that's being proposed. So again, pushing to try and make sure that Quinton actually gets its fair share of a citywide budget, as opposed to what occasionally happens. That's me done. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few more
The
questions.
really good news there is the fact that Marie is pushing for these average speed cameras, which is what we have been after since 2016. I'll be honest, since I've been in 2016, we've been pushing for that. So if we've got that now, if we're moving closer to that, that's just wonderful news for us all.
Brilliant. So we've got a few hands up at the moment. So obviously we've got quite a packed agenda this evening. So I will go through these very quickly. Elliot, you've got a quick question?
Yeah, there are 2 points. One, the police data thing has come up before. We discovered through the Ward Forum 2 or 3 years back that not all accidents that the police attend or an ambulance attends are actually recorded. And so it's no wonder that the things that's going on West Boulevard are not recorded fully. The police just don't have time was one message, and it's not always the local police force that attends. The second point I wanted to make was Hagley Road West. I don't know whether it's in Hagley Road and Hagley Road West are within our constituency, but where the junction with Wolverhampton Road and Hagley Road, there have been a number of very serious accidents there recently, and in the just outside Lightwoods Park, there are signs bent over where 2 people were killed when they crashed into it, and the car caught fire. So West Boulevard is a serious problem, but it's far from being the only one. Thank you.
Can we move next on to
Elliot, to let you know that is another area where we've been pushing for average speed cameras. We've got them all the way up from up to Bearwood, but when you get to those lights at Bearwood, from
that's
there
where it finishes.
and we are pushing for that, and I'm sure Dominic is as well. But I've been, you know, this is one of my absolute bugbears. The speeding on that
along there are phenomenal.
Absolutely dreadful.
Lauren?
Hi, yeah, so my name's Lauren. I'm from the office of Preet Court-Gill, the local MP. So just to say that Preet has also been supporting Kate and Dominic with this. She's met with the Police and Crime Commissioner and the Chief Constable to talk about the average speed cameras. She's also confirmed that West Boulevard should be getting the temporary measure of the flashing speed signs, and the issue that's been mentioned on the road near Lightwood House. That is also in discussion for getting those signs as well, as again a temporary measure if we can't get the averaging speed cameras in place. So just wanted to give that quick update.
Thank you, Lauren. Peter, Peter Beck.
Thank you. It's just first of all a matter arising from the last meeting. It was noted that on the tree planting programme, 15 trees had been planted so far. I just wondered where these trees had been planted and what sort of species, and in particular whether they're natives. That's the first one.
Okay.
And the second one, excuse my ignorance, but somebody has told me that Amy are still carrying out highway work in Birmingham and presumably, I don't know, in Quinton. But obviously we have Kia and they're obviously doing work, highways work. So I just wanted just clarification about that.
Where's this bloody hand up? Right, okay.
I can answer some of those if you like, Peter, or
who?
Yes, Stuart, absolutely, please do.
Yes, thank you, Stuart. Thank you.
Peter.
Welcome back, Stuart.
So okay, I was hovering in the background. So regarding Amy, no, Amy is certainly well away from a contract now. So trees have been in place since well, it'll be 2 years this April, so since April 2020. Regarding tree planting, I've got the list in front of me now, so I can just read out a few. So there's Hadley Road West, we're on there, Maps Road, Quinton Road West, Borden Road, Blakely Avenue. So there's a few locations on there, and I can shout out a few of the trees that are going in, just give you an idea. My Latin's not as good as it used to be, but I'll do the best I can. So got some prunus, some Liriodendron, they're quite nice, small prunus, a sorbus, pyrus, some Aza campestre, some
I
malers,
wonder, I'm not.
Hang on, you can't hear you.
some ginkgo as well. They're quite nice, and some Carpinus betula. So yeah, a bit of a mixture. So I suppose the quick answer is the right tree for the right location, really. So if it's a nice big verge, we try and get a big tree in. If it's a smaller one with a narrow footpath, you probably end up with like a pyrus, which is quite a narrow tree. So yes.
Thank you very much for that.
That's okay.
Unfortunately, offhand, I'm not really familiar with the botanical names, if you like, the Latin names. Are you able to give us the common English name?
So prunus is a cherry tree. Sorbus, well, that's like what else? So you got Acer, so that's obviously maple. Carpinus betula, that's sort of hawthorn. I used to be a tree officer, so I should know all these off the top of my head. But
Never mind.
it's been a couple of years.
Sorry to interrupt, gents. Could I suggest perhaps that Stuart could provide us with a list of trees that are planted across the area, and we can forward that on to you, Peter. So I'm conscious of time for the meeting.
Just following on from that, is there actually a policy in terms of nature recovery to actually have basically, as far as possible, native trees? Some are small, of course, and some are quite big, depending on what is appropriate. Is there a council policy?
The council do have a list of trees. They may not necessarily be native, I suppose. That would always be again, it's the right tree, the right location. There would be like a policy of trees we don't plant anymore. So we don't do ash or chestnut trees due to the dieback issue. So I suppose native where possible, but really, again, right tree, right location, really, I'll say, Peter.
Okay.
Thank you. Can we, I believe Claire Sandercott has a quick question. No, Claire? No, Melanie, you just raised your hand. Would you like a quick?
Yes, please. I've got a question regarding speeding and car crime, if I may. I live on right on the very edge of the ward, just off Spires Lane, off Chichester Drive. We kind of get forgotten a lot of the times because we're right on the very edge, and we're often on the route past when they're doing their speeding. About 2 o'clock in the morning, they'll start their driving past at speed. They do a loop round the Quinton Expressway, back up and round. Those measures you're talking about for average speed, for example, will that extend right to the edge of the ward where there's a crossover into another district, or are they just stopping at West Boulevard? And that I also have another question from the point of car crime. Again, our little estate, you can get to our estate from behind the meadows, so there's a cut through. In August last year, my car was broken into. It was ransacked. They tried to steal it. They couldn't. It was on the driveway. They didn't set the alarm off. Same as 2 other cars on the same street. And they come from the meadows. So they're coming from different areas, but they can cut through. But again, we are a small estate that's like a pocket. There's only 2 ways on and off. Down the high street or off top of Spires Lane. We don't get patrolled. We have them coming through on bikes, push bikes, and walking all the way through. I was lucky enough because there were prints over the car. They made such a mess of it that the police turned out. And the first thing that the lady said when she came to take the fingerprints was, "We very rarely come here because you're right on the border." So my question about the schemes to improve the presence, if you like, of the police, and from a speeding point of view, will they extend right the way to the edge of the ward?
I think myself and Kate can certainly request that Sergeant Shaw make sure that we are getting the neighbourhood team to patrol all areas of the ward, including Chichester Estate. If they're not being very present there at the moment, that'd be fine. On the speeding front, obviously their presence helps with speeding, but in terms of specific roads that we're trying to look at and put measures in place on, our focus is, well, mine anyway, is West Boulevard and Hagley Road West, purely because that's where we're seeing the most collisions and where speeding is the largest issue. The problem is that with the putting in these measures, there is such a process and a funding problem and everything else. So we do have to look at it on a scheme by scheme basis. Yeah,
I appreciate that, but it's often the comment that because we're right on the border with the net out of Birmingham, it's difficult for them to know where to step in and where not to step in. And it's not the first time the comments come across. We very rarely get to you, or we very rarely come out because you're right on the border. It was just a point to ask, just to make sure we're not forgotten again.
And you're definitely part of Quinton. But what I will do is when I speak with Sergeant, I'll request that he make sure that they include your area in the walkouts by the PCFOs.
Please.
Because it sounds as though you've perhaps not been visited there.
Well, no,
follow that up.
There were numerous break-ins during the day, during weekends, overnight, cars being taken, things being taken from cars, ransacked of all ages. But we're quite accessible by lots of different mediums. As I said, push bike, on foot, cars, etc. And we're kind of out of sight and mind. So if you wouldn't mind, please, as I've been a victim of it myself in August.
There should be no argument in that you are definitely part of Quinton. You're definitely part of Birmingham. Okay. So there shouldn't be any boundary or somewhere or anywhere else. But I will make sure that that portion of Quinton is actually drawn to their attention, so they're aware that they really do need to be.
It is, because the park area at the bottom of the estate has little gatherings. They do actually gather there late of an evening before they set out.
Yeah, those need reporting on 101 on the police non-emergency.
Yeah.
Or you can do it online, which actually I find generally is better.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Claire, you have a quick question.
I just want to quickly ask, I thought it was quite easy to move speed cameras around, and you're right about West Boulevard, it's an absolute nightmare for speeding, but when you're going into town down Hagley Road, you can't speed, and there's lots of speed cameras down there, so why can't they just do a bit of moving around, and when they catch people they need to fine them quickly, big fines, and it needs to go in the papers as well, is what I think. Another rant about speeding.
A name and a shame, Claire. I think
there seems to be
on the Hagley Road, so they're not just quick photograph and catch ones. They're ones that actually time you to make sure that the traffic stays under 30 miles an hour. So they can't just be swapped around. They're not the mobile ones.
Right.
But we will make that point to them.
Can we any more comments to the next until the end of the meeting, because obviously we're running really far behind on the agenda right now, and I'd like to start moving on to point number 3, which is Quinton's green spaces, with Sue Amy, please. Is Sue Amy here?
Hello. Sorry, I was typing, so I didn't hear you.
Did I wake you up, Sue?
You did, yes. I was having a lovely nap. I've sort of come along, really. I haven't really got that much of an update. It was more about asking you guys for some feedback. I had a chat a few weeks ago with Barry, and we were just chatting about general stuff. So just to give you just a little bit before sort of going into asking questions is just in terms of an update, we're still quite badly affected by the pandemic in terms of our Rangers team are quite badly stretched, because some of our areas where we rely on volunteering, like a Sheldon Country Park where we have a urban farm, volunteering is still very down on numbers because of the pandemic. So our Rangers team is quite stretched, trying to fill the gaps that our precious volunteers have opened up at the moment, obviously through no fault of their own, but it's just one of those things. We're also still in a situation with the Woodgate Valley Visitor Centre that the visitor centre is closed because we've got an ongoing COVID testing centre on site, which is currently there till the end of March. But to be honest, I don't know how long it's going to be there. It's how long is a piece of string, to be honest. So the visitor centre remains closed. We have got rangers on site. There's 2 covering that site, so they match their hours. So if you're trying to get a hold of them 2 days a week, you probably will fail because they're having to come in at the same times and provide 5 out of 7 day cover. We're still working really well with the Wildlife Trust and with our other conservation groups where we can. I know Peter Beck, we've been supporting them. I know they're doing quite a lot of work on their own as well. And we have been working closely with the Wildlife Trust at various sites around the country park and satellite sites to start developing volunteering and planting schemes following on from a Natural Rivers project, which we've been involved in with the Wildlife Trust and the Environment Agency. That will involve along the Bourne Brook this coming autumn, planting of ground flora with volunteers. So there's an opportunity for people to get involved with us there, working with the Wildlife Trust. So they can obviously, if anybody's interested, if they want to contact me, or we can contact the Wildlife Trust direct, I can link people up later on if you like. And I just had a quick scan at your ward plan, and I just picked up on something which should be very interesting. I think just briefly to mention to you now is something that might come up in the future. I am looking for funding to try and tackle scramble activity on the country park. For the last few years, I've been trialling several measures at some of our other sites that have been very heavily impacted. Lay Hill Park in Bartley Green and Senelys Park in Bartley Green, with quite a lot of success. So I would be interested if there's anybody who's got a particular interest in that. I'm quite happy to have a chat with them and talk through the possible options that we have for trying to improve that on the country park. So that was it from me, really. I don't know if anybody or if Barry wants to carry
please.
on. And
Please go, Barry.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear
yes,
you.
Okay. I've spoke to Sue a lot recently. We've had a checkered history, but I would like to it is in the last minutes that I've formally thanked Kate and Dom and Sue for a good example of councillors, residents and officers of the council working together with regards to Highfield. So while Sue's here, I'd like to say that publicly, and while Kate and Dom are here. So thank you for the work in supporting the Highfield plans, as it were. I kind of emailed round, I don't know how many people got it, to say I felt, and I've raised this before and got nowhere because there's a silence, that there is a lot of green stuff going on in Quinton, some of which is kept very close to people's chests and not out there in the public domain. I feel the best thing about Quinton in many ways is that we have such green spaces. We are well endowed with green spaces. Recreation is another matter, as this was pointed out by Caroline Badley when the Martineau went. I think we've got a lot of green space for the plans, the regulations then, so many per hectares per 100,000 people or whatever it was. But we hadn't got recreation. What I'm trying to say is, I feel there's a fragmenting going on in Quinton where people are all shooting off doing their own thing, and we've never sat down and say, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to do? But more importantly, what does Quinton want us to do? Because I might think I want to resurrect football on a Mooga in Quinton. Well, what does Quinton think about that? Somebody else might think, well, I want to do this piece of green stuff or that piece of green stuff. What's Quinton saying? While we're working separate, it seems to me that we're wasting a golden opportunity to have a green spaces forum. I'm not a big fan of meetings. We just talk too much and we don't get outcomes necessarily. But while we're fragmented, there's almost a waste of talent. There's a waste of overall vision for Quinton. And people like Sue pick up the tab by dealing with so many different groups, doing so many different things. The charity money, of which Birmingham seems now to be fully embarked upon, not funding things like the parks, but relying on charity money. The Heart of England, I don't know if that's where Phil and I visited with a walking group, but that was £700 million from the guy in the Heart of England. So I know the story behind that, and we've seen his statue. But it just seems to me now it's funny money being split up, scattered around, when there's quite expensive things that need doing for green spaces and bigger things. And so I asked for this green spaces conversation. I understand there's green social prescribers appointed now, yet somebody else to come in to talk about what we're going to do with green spaces. We've got a fair bit of talent in Quinton for green spaces, Peter and Vina in particular, Claire in particular. But we're all over the place. Somebody's doing something over there, somebody's doing something over there, and with no coherent strategy that we can sit down and say, this is what we're trying to do. I don't know if this makes sense. I just feel we're on the cusp of something good that is going to be lost if we fragment lots of money from charity money, and in particular, we start appointing agency staff to talk about all these things for hours, and they're getting salaries as well. The salaries should be going to the money should be going to the park and the local community, talking with the parks about how much money is available and what it can be spent on. That's me done.
Thank you. And I believe that Peter Beck wants to continue with this.
Right. Okay. Right. Thank you. What I'm wanting to talk about is specifically the nature crisis and nature recovery aspect of the green spaces in Quinton, which I do feel as being very much neglected. I think we've talked a lot about recreation in the green spaces, but surely now, knowing what a crisis is going on, both in terms of nature and also of climate, it's time to really regard as a priority, a big priority, what is happening in respect to particularly nature recovery in our green spaces. And I've just done a bit of a list regarding the existing green spaces where nature recovery is taking place, and that would cover the Quinton Meadows Local Nature Reserve, the Woodgate Valley Country Park Local Nature Reserve, Highfield Farm Recreation Ground, Howley Grange Recreation Ground, Quinton Business Park, its green spaces, Quinton Allotments green spaces, No Name Lane space, planters outside the shops in Quinton Road West. Now, nearly all of that list have been suffering from the need of, but lack of, rangers and nature conservation volunteers, therefore a lack of management. The other green spaces, the following: Quinton Playing Field has plans for nature and climate recovery, Quinton Recreation Ground, a nature climate recovery is required, Tennell Lane Recreation Ground, a nature climate recovery is required. Green Wild Corridor alongside the M5, very recent. Well, there are plans there after devastation and cutting down of trees. There are plans now for a nature and climate recovery. Finally, and this refers to what's listed in the Future Parks Acceleration Programme, there are parts of homes, flats and other buildings, cemeteries such as Quinton Burial Ground, wildlife corridors, woodlands, playing fields, community gardens, the bit of grass at the end of the road, which I'm quoting, verges and other mown grass spaces. So I want this to be well and truly recognised. And it's been a long time now since the council's Future Parks Acceleration Programme, Naturally Birmingham, that has well, in fact, the importance of green spaces, it covered the fact that the importance of green spaces has always been recognised by individuals that use them. However, over more recent years, the funding for the development and care of green spaces has been reduced. Now, it goes on to talk about what the value is of green spaces. But just to let everybody know that the Future Parks Accelerator Programme, Naturally Birmingham, no longer exists. It only ran for 2 years. It started in May 2019 and it finished in April 2021. It was only concerned, and this is the problem with it, it was only concerned about the future. Only one green space project had been funded during its 2 years. That was the Dorbury Fields Reptile Project, crowdfunded by the Birmingham and Black Country Wildlife Trust. It was mainly aimed at Birmingham City Council departments and establishing what it called nature or green champions in them. Similarly, it was concerned only about helping the next generation of champions restoring nature in green spaces, not the current existing champions, i.e. those helping to manage or develop and enhance green spaces such as Quinton Meadows Local Nature Reserve or Pitts Wood, or smaller green spaces such as those which Bloom and Quinton tried to develop. I'm not aware over its 2 years that it's been evaluated. What has it achieved is the question. And what has it created? It's created a new department under Hamira Sultan. It's also created this new and better habitat in Dorbury Fields Park. But there are questions and problems. First of all, is what we are doing in Quinton sustainable? A lot of us are quite old, so we do need the next generation and children taught about nature and climate recovery. Now, what can we do now? We need Birmingham City Council to retrain and employ some workers, such as gardeners and grass mowers, to carry out nature recovery work. We need to stop the current mowing regime of Birmingham City Council's green spaces and instead create meadows, large and small. You can see a good example of this at the big traffic island in Halesowen near Earlswood School, not far from Quinton. We need urgently a different approach and attitude from the senior leadership teams in the Birmingham City Council's housing, highways, and indeed in all the Birmingham City Council departments regarding their green spaces, the ones that they are responsible for. We need to have Birmingham City Council and public health employees teaching and promoting how important green spaces and green recovery are to people's well-being and mental health, i.e. green social sub-prescribers. And lastly, these organisations in Quinton involved with nature recovery in green spaces can apply to firms for funding, for example, Severn Trent, and also to some of the trusts and the Commonwealth Games celebrating communities. Last year, I attended a talk about Birmingham's plan for nature recovery. It had a panel chaired by Simon Needle. It was very good, except that it was only concerned about Birmingham City Centre. Once again, the green spaces in the rest of Birmingham are not considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Dominic, Councillor Stanford, you'd like to say something?
I think I can't quite remember what I put my hand up for. I wonder if Sue could touch upon the meadows element, which feels like a tangible thing that we can do within the green spaces in Quinton, and you can give us the policy on that.
Well, I've posted in the chat the link to the Naturally Birmingham delivery framework. I think it's just it's important to point out that it's quite a major proposal, and what they're looking at is very much a long-term change of the way that the city operates, so that nature recovery is at the heart. And I think the way they are, from what we had a briefing earlier this week from the main lead officers, and it is, you know, we're not necessarily going to see immediate changes on the back of the FPA work and what they're achieving, but they are looking at a 25-year plan, a long-term plan. And we all of us know from our own individual experiences how the change process can take time and is complex and it's multifaceted. So in the shorter term, I can't give you any answers right now, but we are looking at our operations in terms of grass cutting and meadow creation, meadow management and things like that. For us, it's we have to balance our budgets. So for us, it is about how we achieve some more changes and how we fund those changes. So, like I said, I haven't got the answers for you now, but what I would say is we have done over the years, we have, especially in the south of the city, created huge amounts of natural meadow, and we have huge amounts of local nature reserves and very high value meadow all over the place. There's always scope for more, but I think one of the key outcomes of the FPA project is it's identified that there is this environmental justice consideration, which is, so that's where the focus appears to be more central at the moment, because when they've done an assessment of where the natural capital is within the city, it's all around the outskirts, you know, the suburbs, and the city centre is really devoid of those natural green areas, and that's why they're focusing their next phase, which is about pilots, looking at individual sites and doing studies and trialing different things to see what works and what could improve. And one of the main things they're trying to get away from is, rather than having a core standard of delivery across the city where everybody has the same level of delivery, what they want is the focus to change to more targeted delivery, so that it's on a site or ward specific basis. So yeah, I mean, we're at the end of the day, we're looking at meadow creation and we're looking at naturalizing more. But from my perspective and my colleagues' perspective, who actually deliver the service and the operational side, we also have to look at how we can do that financially. And yeah, so it is very much on the agenda. We have got, I would say, we have got the Commonwealth Games coming up. You can imagine that is going to be, that takes up that's a very demanding part on parks, who are expected to deliver a huge amount of things associated with that as well. But on the back of that, I would hope that we might get some opportunities to do more naturalisation. I mean, we've already got some of my other groups who have been successful with grants and who are doing increased tree planting, naturalising areas, refreshing areas, greening areas up. So I would imagine that sort of thing will continue and extend.
Thank you very much, Sue. Elliot, you've got a quick point.
Yes, sorry, I'm not muted. There are two things I wanted to say. One was that within our ward plan, we actually have a requirement to convene a meeting of green space and community organisations to address some of this. And I think that I take Peter's points, but just expressing them in a meeting like this and having no actions is likely to lead to frustration. So we do need to do that so that we in Quinton can state what it is we want to do about green spaces and at least have an argument with the others about other people about what the priorities are and whether we've got it right or not. We need a vehicle. The second one is a much more mundane and single question to Sue. First of all, thanks for the help you gave us on the stuff that we've put in for the celebrating communities. The one that stood alongside it, Sue, was trying to get that path improved, and I wondered whether you'd made any progress with that.
I might be able to help on the path front. If do you want to go first, Sue, and then I'll come in?
Well, I'll be very quick. I haven't done anything with that, so over to you, Councillor.
That's not quite true. You're underselling yourself. Sue very helpfully put a full quote together for that stretch of path that we want into Highfield Recreation Ground, into the Woodgate Valley, and I've since then been tapping up the new active travel commissioner for the West Midlands, a guy called Adam Tranter, who works with Andy Street, and have asked him to investigate any available channels where we can get the funding to deliver said path. So that's with him.
Thank you.
And I'll chase him up. But yeah, definitely top of my list. The other thing which I would want to say whilst I'm speaking is to say a massive thank you to Sue for your help sorting out and getting the Rangers to support us with the Jubilee tree planting that we did back in November, which is part of Nature Recovery. Peter is good. We planted over 200 trees down on Highfield Farm Recreation Ground without infringing on the area where we might want to try and develop some kind of sport recreation at the bottom where a football pitch would fit quite nicely. So thank you very much for that. And I'm not just saying that because you, I think, are technically my landlord.
Yes.
Well, put his rent up and get a bit more money in for Quinton.
Yeah.
Councillor Booth, you have your hand up, and then Barry, I'll come to you
Thank
after.
you very much. I'm very, very conscious of time, so I'll be very, very quick. I was going to point out that a lot of the stuff around green spaces is in the ward plan. I think if we're talking about having a meeting, there are so many different people involved in green spaces in the ward. I won't go through them all because I think we've named them all. But also just to draw your attention to the fact that if you want to have a look at the plans for Birmingham, there's a Birmingham City of Nature 25-year strategy that's there, 1,000 trades to 1,000 green spaces. So that will incorporate all these small areas that people have been talking about. You can look it up as naturallybirmingham.org. There's also Birmingham Open Spaces Forum that I know a lot of our small groups like Pittswood and other areas are associated with, and the allotments I think are linked to, and they coordinate work around green spaces. So rather than doing something separately, we might want to do something separately, but there's also other people across the city that do that. And just one, I just want to mention the Patchwork Meadows project that's been going on with Woolly Mammoth, where we're sewing seeds and sewing embroidery, which is a lovely project. So there are, as everybody said, lots and lots of different projects. They're not just different in Quinton, they're different across the city as well. So it's quite a difficult thing to pull them all together. But finally, we've had mention of green prescribing. That was being managed. The green social prescribers were kind of managed around the Quinton Active Quinton group. That's disbanded. My understanding that the green social prescribing is now being done through the Active Wellbeing Society. It was through an officer or whatever they call their workers, managers, Marcus Bell, but I'm not sure who's doing it now. But it is in the hands of TORS now. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Barry.
Yeah, it's just some clarification. First of all, TORS have got managers and green social prescribers throughout in Birmingham, because I went on the website and looked at job descriptions and what people were being paid and what was being advertised. One of the green social prescribers has just left in January, quite abruptly, I think. Secondly, a correction, please, from the minutes from the last meeting. Having spoken to somebody about Sue today. The 700 trees that are supposed to be being planted at Quinton Highfield Farm Recreation Ground, which is in the minutes from last time. That isn't the case, I believe. Can you elaborate on that, Sue?
I've just pulled up the original information. I hadn't had any further information. So originally there was 700 trees identified, but I believe the trees that were which were planted earlier, well, towards the end of last year, they were included in that number 700. So I'm expecting there to be another 500 or so, rather than another 700.
Planted where though? Planted where? Sorry.
So again at Highfield, but within the existing plantations there are some failures. So it's about gapping up in some of those areas where we've had whips that have died, rather than extending the areas completely, and then just filling out those areas a bit, so it will still be around the periphery of the park, not the central areas.
Right,
I need to check with,
I mean, 700 trees is an awful lot of trees to whack onto Highfield Farm Recreation Ground. There's just been 200 put in, and whilst I don't have to justify my green credentials because I've worked with everybody on here. But what I would say is we really must not end up going down a green route that completely ignores the fact that human beings live here as well. It's how we manage these areas for green in the long term, and trees are a long-term project. They're not going to benefit anybody now, but also with nature rehabilitation and so on. It's also people need a rehabilitation. There isn't a massive amount of stuff for young people in Quinton, activities, places to go in Quinton. If you like walking, if you like nature, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Phil, and we're about measurable outcomes. Phil, who sat there, started a walking group at the start of COVID that had 150 people join and fragmented into various walking groups in the end. He's just put out another thing, and I think you got 150 again, Phil. I've been on your walks, and you please, because I've asked you this already, please tell people how many walks you've done in the last 2 years and how many people you reckon has been on them, because I've been on a lot of them.
Well, currently we have 1,600 members now, and we have I've done about 150 walks over the last 18 months. And blimey, how many people have come along? It's included a lot of people, but just keeping people happy. But the walking group's going really well. Thank you, Barry.
Yeah, and can I just add to that? We do a lot of talking. The Birmingham Open Spaces Forum, the Friends of, by and large, are a few people doing a lot of work, and a lot of people are interested. There's not enough people stepping forward, and I hope Peter, Vina, Claire, you'll back that up. I noticed. What's the name? Jude isn't here tonight, which is a shame, because we need bodies and we're not getting them. So add the lack of volunteers to pots of money being chased by people being paid to chase them. Doing small things isn't the answer in Quinton. I'm sorry. I don't want to offend anybody here. We need to get together and have some coherent strategy that doesn't waste a lot of time and people are chasing the same amount of funding or whatever. Let's have an overall plan of what we're trying to do, which includes nature recovery, green as in planting spaces, and access, because Dominic, it's not just the bottom of Highfield we're talking about. We're talking about the strip that goes across to the visitors centre, which is a nightmare to cross in winter. And then the link, there's another link. Quinton Meadows, getting down through there, which Peter's mentioned once before. We need to work together on these things, yeah, and put in a bigger plan with a lot more voices rather than small individual voices trying to do their bit.
This has been a really good point on the agenda, the Quinton Green Spaces. Who was the person who actually asked for that to be put on the agenda? Anybody?
Well,
it was you.
I put out an email because I've been mentioning this since last summer, really.
But it is in the ward plan.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Barry. Thank you. Can we next move? Obviously, time is short, and we've got still quite a bit to go through, including the ward plan update. Can we move on to point number 4, which is TORS LIF, the Active Wellbeing Society update? Anybody? Do we have a representative?
Yeah, so I'll just update you briefly, although I think Peter Becker's got his hand up, but it's probably about green spaces. So if he can be super quick, and because I am just very, very conscious that at 8:30 I have to be off. Peter, was it about round green spaces? I think you're on mute.
Was that, I think,
Peter?
unfortunately, Barry doesn't have any real understanding about that we're in and have been for many years, a big nature crisis, and he doesn't understand what we're trying to do, what we are in terms of our green spaces. What we're trying to do is to actually make sure that they contribute to a nature recovery. And what you don't understand is that there are lots and lots of green spaces which need to be, instead of just simply mown, they need to be actually made again a nature, a really good, strong area of nature. So that's what we're trying to do, Barry, and it's essential. We've lost so much in terms of nature, nature areas where you've got things like meadows and trees and so on. It's just been catastrophic. Now we've got the opportunity, if we want to try and actually do some nature recovery in the Quinton ward. And the other thing I'll just quickly say is that in terms of the number of rangers and volunteers, yes, that's one aspect that we need to look at. We need to get more people actually trained, employed as skilled people in terms of nature recovery. And I just gave the example of people who could possibly do so. Instead of them being grass mowers, we don't need to have a big regime of cutting the grass. We can instead actually retrain them, and so that they have still got their jobs, and they can actually help with looking after our all the green spaces. Thank you,
Peter. This has been a fantastic subject that obviously we're talking about. May I make a suggestion to our councillors? Can we have a green spaces meeting at some point where people of interest would come along?
It's in the ward plan.
Just to come along and just to talk about.
Elliot's correct. It is in the ward plan, and we haven't yet arranged it, but we will arrange it, and that's an excellent idea. I do think we should move on.
Brilliant, thank you. If we can move on to obviously, sorry, Barry, you got a quick question?
Yeah, I just Peter, I do find that a bit rude, but however, what I would say is read Islands of Abandonment. Okay, it's the Times bestseller for non-fiction, based on what a cock-up mankind has made, but how nature recovers in Bikini Atoll, in Scotland, the Five Sisters southeast of Edinburgh, which is a huge derelict area.
Barry, could you drop it round to him next time you see it? We do need to
so but I think we need to sit down and discuss it, not in a ward forum.
Just very, very quickly, Steve Williams, have you got a very quick point to make?
Yeah, just very quickly. May I not know I'm the secretary of the Quinton allotments. Just go back to what Barry was saying briefly. We're quite we put a large bid into the Commonwealth Games Fund of £9,000. It's yet to be approved. It'll probably, hope if it does get approved, it will come up in the next forum. It is for building raised beds to invite disabled groups and other groups. I've been involved with a lady called Deborah Upton, who's put me in touch with a group of people who would like to use the facilities. We have a pavilion at the allotments, and in the past, the allotments has been a bit of a closed space because a lot of the tenants are nervous about, you have lots of incidents of theft and damage when we do allow people onto the site. It used to be open on a Sunday afternoon, but we had to close it because too many people were getting things stolen and damaged. So, but I would like to, reopen the space to the general community so that they can enjoy it. And people are quite, when they do visit us, they're quite amazed about, how large the site is. And we have got, facilities there that they can use and share, which we will be doing so in the future if we get this funding from the Commonwealth Games Fund. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Steve. Kate, have you got anything more to add about the Tours Lift update?
All I was going to say is because a number of residents weren't satisfied with the responses that we'd had through Karen Cheney and from Tours, what I've done is I've referred it to the city solicitor. So I've asked the city solicitor to just go through the documents and come back to us. I just felt we were just going round with circles, so I just thought that was the fastest way of doing it. So luckily that was 15 minutes on the agenda, so it won't be 15 minutes. I'm just giving you that update. We'll bring it back when we've had the response from the city solicitor. So you've just gained 15 minutes, Phil.
Brilliant, thank you. I'd like
Sorry,
to
Phil, just before we move on, I did receive an update of sorts on the Tours thing. I raised it directly with the chief executive in a meeting for her to investigate. She referred it back to obviously the neighbourhoods department officers, who have then written us a report which was shared with us, but isn't necessarily the final report that we would be expecting from the head of neighbourhoods. In short, the report doesn't cover very much. I've shared it with a couple of the concerned parties, and it hasn't really changed the position at all. The investigation hasn't been sufficient, and we will keep on badgering and badgering.
Thank you. I'd like to next invite Councillor Stanford and Councillor Booth to give us an update on the ward plan. This is probably the main part of the forum.
So the way we thought we would manage this is we're going to ask Beverly to put the ward plan up. What I've done is, I don't know what Dominic's done, but I've gone through the ward plan and I've got on my copy of the ward plan what I think has been done. So I think probably the thing to do is to go through it a point at a time. Forgive me if my eyes appear to be not looking at you properly, because I'll be looking at my copy of the ward plan.
Can I just check? Can I just check? Can everybody see the ward plan now? Because
yes, we can.
But okay, fine, thanks.
I think I need my glasses though.
We'll have to do a whistle stop tour, Kate.
Yeah, it's going to have to be super quick. So shall I lead on this, Dominic, and we'll just take it through?
Yes, carry on.
So if I lead on it, I'll take you through and I'll try and chunk it up a little bit, and then if you come in with things.
I'll just jump in whenever.
Priority one was pedestrian and road safety. So number one was about the speed cushions, Martley Croft, Simmons and Highfield. After years of campaigning, I can remember being there in 2016 and having people telling me then they were concerned about the racetrack that was that area down the valley. That's now been completed. The only complaints I've had from residents is they don't think they're high enough, and that's because we've got buses going down it. We can't have them any higher, but apart from that, that's great. Item two was speed watch groups. So I know we've had several speed watch.
Kate, to interrupt, you've only talked about Simmons. What about the others?
I'm talking about the speed cushions.
Yeah. Have they been done in
Martley? It's going to be on Martley Croft, Simmons Drive and Highfield Lane and Dwellings.
They're all complete, Elliot.
Right, so it's closed. Complete.
It's the whole run down the valley. So when you come off Quinton Road West, you go on to Martley Croft.
Sorry, I was trying to check whether the item was closed.
Simmons turns to Highfield, and Highfield then goes into Dwellings. So that's completed.
You can put a big tick next to it, Elliot.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. The second one was about the speed watch. Both Dominic and I have taken part in the speed watches. I think the first one happened in June, or the first one that we've been involved in as councillors took place in June. I know also Preet Gill's had some speed watch events as well. There have been others through the summer. There was one in July, one in August, and we've had autumn dates as well. I think that's just continuing. Have you got anything to add to that, Dominic?
No, I think we've done 5 or 6 so far. I'm just waiting for the PCSOs to confirm when we're free to do the next one. We need more volunteers on that front though, so that we can do more of them. But yeah, that's another tick, Elliot.
It's the same. You know, we have some extremely active residents who are utterly brilliant, but we do see the same people at the speed watch as we see with Blooming Quinton, as we see litter picking, as we see.
I would comment that I've added my name to that list and don't get contacted.
That's the other thing. We need to facilitate, once we've got the date for the next one, better communication strategy for the speed watch group.
Yeah, I think that is done through the PCSOs, isn't it? So, so point 3 was to continue campaigning for average speed cameras to be installed on Hagley Road West and West Boulevard, and we have discussed that. So there has been petition and work by myself, Preet Gill. I'm sure Dominic's been doing that as well. And then we've had the recent update from Marie Brown, so we will pursue that with great vigour with both Marie, the constituency engineer, and the police to see if we can establish, firstly, quick speed signs, and then secondly, some average speed cameras.
Yeah.
4 was find out and share new policing scheme for ticketing obstructive parking by sending an email pictures to them and get residents. I tried to do a cut and paste of this to put into my ward plan, but it just wouldn't let me do it. So if you go to the Pines Council website, if you look at report road and pavement issues / report a pavement or highway obstruction, you'll find it there. I couldn't manage to put the actual copy of the link in. I don't know, the website, the ward plan wasn't going to let me do that. 5.
How do we publicise that?
Sorry?
How do we publicise that?
Well, what I'll do is I'll get it put onto the ward plan, and the update of the ward plan will come to you. I just couldn't get the.
No, I mean, actually, there's 20,000 people in Quinton. Not all of them read the ward plan.
Right, so we can do it on Twitter and we can do it on Facebook. That's probably going to be the best way of doing it.
Sorry, Councillor Boo, can I quickly jump in? As well as
sorry, I can't see the screen at the moment.
Steve Williams.
Sorry, beg your pardon. Not only for the obstructive parking on pavements and wherever else, how about the parking on grass verges? I live at the top of Quinton Road.
So that's the same, road and pavement issues. So, you know, that's the same. The issue quite often is they won't ticket. If you've got double yellow lines and you park on the pavement, they'll ticket. If you've got a zigzag, they'll ticket. But if there's no markings on the road and you park on the pavement, unless you're actually causing an obstruction, they won't ticket. As far as I can tell.
What I wanted to talk about was people crossing pavements to drive their cars up onto grass verges, which is against the law. It's against the highway code. And I've written to your predecessor, Councillor Gregson, about this 3 years ago. He promised that letters would be sent to the residents. Nothing has happened. It's still going on. The grass has been destroyed. There's large brown grass marks and it's just making the area look really tatty, and it needs to be put a stop to.
If you want to pass details to me, I will pass them on. I know it's highways, so it's Stuart's department, but I know that letters have gone to some residents because I've been informed that
there needs to be a follow-up then, doesn't it? And people need to be prosecuted for crossing the. You can't. Apparently, there's no bylaw about parking on grass verges anymore. I'm sure there used to be, but apparently Birmingham City Council doesn't have one anymore. Perhaps that needs to be brought back in.
Yeah.
And then also,
so if you want to write to me, I will follow up individual issues for you. I can do that because I quite frankly, I think it's awful the way people do that. So if you want to draw one to my attention, I'll do that. And I know the ones that I've done, not all of them, but many of them have been followed up.
Okay, thank you.
So, right, so the next one was on the primary schools. I did a lot of work on this in the past with the travel to school, mode shift stars and the WOW schemes. I have to admit, Dominic, I don't know whether you've done anything further on this, but I haven't. But I know that Woodhouse and World's End for sure are already involved in these mode shift stars and WOW schemes. Dominic, have you put anything to add to that?
Nothing major other than that I've discussed travel and particularly parking with World's End and with Quinton Church, particularly with the Roundabout.
So that's still outstanding.
Island, but that's outstanding.
So that's an outstanding one. We got partial involvement with some schools. The Voi scooters. I've written to Councillor Wasim Zafar, the cabinet member, and he is aware of our concerns. I know a number of other councillors, not just here in Quinton, not just here in our constituency of Edgbaston, but across the city. And I think there's nationally, there's been an acknowledgement that Voi scooters can be driven around the city, but private scooters are legal. A little bit of traction now. I think the Voi scooters now, I've noticed they started getting some actual parks for them, some kind of like bicycle racks that they go into. So I've spoken with Councillor Wasim Zafar about this. Have you got anything to add to that, Dominic?
Only that I put Lordswood Road junction with Croftdown forward to our group representatives on the Voi consultation committee and asked them to consider it for a parking thing, but I haven't had anything back, so I'll chase it.
Okay. So 7 and 8 were two things where 7 was about double curbs on Faraday to provide to prevent vehicles driving on the path, and 8 was bollards at the end of Mayswood. My understanding is that quotes have been obtained, but it needs to be considered in the future highways budget. Have you got any further notice on that, Dominic?
Sorry, okay.
Is that an action by Marie Brown then?
I don't.
Sorry, the double curbs. Marie gave me a rough quote of costings, and it's not in the current highways budget. Although it could potentially be under the highways improvement plan if I can find out where that money is and how I can apply for it.
Possible. I think I actually snuck this year's budget for the speed humps. I had to take a couple of years to do that, but I think that was just, there was so much noise around that one, so that will probably have to go into next year. So Dominic and somebody else or whoever is in,
if I'm lucky. That's the same for 7 and 8, so that's still in the same position.
So on to priority 2. Number 1, street watch. So we've had the first session on, it was in June, and there were others through the summer, and I believe there are some autumn dates as well in various parts of the ward.
Have we got more street watches?
So I am actually now aware that we have 3 street watches across the ward. One which is the one which was fairly recently set up with a few residents involved, which does need to grow. There's another up on Chichester Drive, which I know there's a couple of residents here from Chichester Drive, but that only currently has 1 active member, so is in need of bolstering from local residents, and particularly if there's concerns that the police aren't as present, it would be great to get some more support into that. So that's a good one. And then the one on the Harborne side of the ward around Fitzroy and Hamilton is very active. They meet regularly, and I think they might even be supported by the Harborne PCSOs rather than the Quinton ones. Yes, so there's actually 3. So we need to encourage growth of them, but they're all active.
Which is great. And again, it's a call for volunteers, people who are interested in joining that. Number 2 is about regular policing feedback. So unfortunately, as we know, the police aren't here tonight, but they have reinstated their meetings. The first one was at the end of September, and that was at the far end of the ward in the Quinton Church Primary. We've got one, I think, is going to be at the end of February. Is it?
I think I said beginning of March at the start of the meeting.
Beginning of March, forgive me. So, but those are going to be regular. But you know, September, October, November, December, January, February, they're not that regular, are they? So we should perhaps push the police to try and get them perhaps 2 monthly.
But are we saying we've actually completed that one? They're now doing it.
Well, they're happening, yeah.
Yeah. So we can close
I think
that.
I think we say that we're trialing the new pact meetings, and we'll resolve at the end of the year whether or not we're happy with them and whether the format's working.
Yeah.
Number 3, ask police to provide information on actions, arrests, successes in combating local crime and plans for policing. So I sent an email on the 22nd of the 9th asking for this and attendance at the ward meetings, and the 13th of the 10th I've asked again today if we could get attendance. We haven't got that. I'll continue to contact the police, and I think if we decide, I think we've got a meeting planned for mid-March, and I think if we can get the invitation to the police today or tomorrow, then we can try and insist that they do come, because I think there are a number of things around combating local crime and plans, and I think it is good that they do come to the ward forum and not just to the pact meeting. 4, encourage the setting up of more neighbourhood watch schemes.
No progress from me on that.
Down as yours, Dominic.
No progress.
Sorry. Okay. 5, expand the availability of crime prevention literature. Again, that's something that's down for both of us. I think we need the conversation with the police, so we really do need them to come along to the ward forum. 6, put measures in place to ensure the speedy removal of traveller encampments. So I contacted some information, so I have got some information. If you go on to, again, I tried to do a cut and a paste, it wouldn't happen. If you go onto the Birmingham City Council website, you'll find there is some work on unauthorised encampments. If you give me a moment. Sorry?
That one's closed then.
Well, I'll tell you what I've got. I mean, there is a process in place.
Yes, so that's closed.
So yeah, okay, I won't bother reading that out then. Thank God. It's got so many things open now. So 7, illegal motorbike riding in Woodgate Valley. Well, I think Sergeant Short did address that a little bit in what he said. I know it's on their radars, so hopefully that will be dealt with. So it is there. So I've just lost mine again. Oops.
Sorry, we should tap into Sue Amy's plan as well, which is what she was talking about earlier on, to tackle that.
Yeah. So priority 3A, which was around protection improvement of ward assets, publishing information, dates and frequencies. So I requested, I sent an email in August, I sent one in September, and I've requested again this year, this side of New Year's Eve, again for those schedules. I know they were updating them. I think that was a problem, and the same with the road sweepers. I have got some old bin schedules and some days when people should be coming around that I could possibly share. So I'll see if I can get those out. Just let me put a reminder. Encourage residents, schools and other groups to do regular community litter picks. I suppose this isn't the time of year, but I think during May, June, July, August and September, we were very active with litter picking. We had Blooming Quinton out. We had lots of clean-up operations around in Quinton and Harborne. So there was a lot going on. I think that will pick up again as we get into the better weather. It always does go a bit quiet. It's a good time of year to be picking up the litter now, because as the weather improves, you haven't got the leaves growing back yet, so you can get at the litter. So we'll get cracking on that again. But I think that's just that's one that we probably won't ever finish. That's just something that's got to be rejigged each time. 3, identify problem passages and make sure they are.
The only thing I would add to the list picking thing is that as we approach the Commonwealth Games, Andy Street is doing a big West Midlands big cleanup. So I know that Quinton Cormac, who looks after the Clean Up Quinton and Harborne group, is tapping into the combined authority to arrange a big clean-up with their support and with the council officer support as well.
And
so what's the space on the date for that?
We have got a lot of litter picking equipment in the ward that we can use. So there's lots that we can do. I don't know whether I've. So one of the things, I can't remember if I've got it later or whether it's. Oh yeah, no, it comes up in a minute. Dogfiling. Identify problem passageways. Well, I've had a lot of fun with No Name Lane. That's a little road that runs from the top of Simmons up by Quinton Road West down to Highfield Lane. Eventually, I have got housing to admit that it is theirs. They told me they'd inspected it and they thought it was okay. I didn't, so I went and had a look at it with the chair of the Quinton Housing Liaison Board, and we've sent a whole list, or we're in the process of sending a whole list of things around that, just that bit. You've got the lane itself, which is housing, and then you've got the bit that actually goes into the school, which is education, where people just chuck stuff over the fence. I think there's a big project going in Birmingham now about clearing up alleyways. So I think that will come to the fore over the next few months.
Don't we need some action to try and actually track down some of the people that are causing the litter? We're only dealing with the symptom here.
So with the alleyways, one of the big issues is the kind of fly tipping and dumping. So with No Name Lane, there's bags of household waste and black bin bags full of other stuff, burnt out motorbikes, carpets, all of that kind of stuff. And equally in the other awful alleyway is 6 acres, 4 acres, the cut through there, which is just a constant dumping spot. So the council have brought out a new fund for mobile CCTV cameras for these hotspots. And there's so far been 2 petitions organised by me and Connor, focused on putting CCTV next to the Scout Hut on Ridgeacre Road West, and also in the alleyway between 4 acres and 6 acres. So far, no responses from the council, and I'm not really sure, again, what the process is to actually get the support from those funds and get those cameras into our community, because as you know, it's very murky to find anything out with this council.
One of the worst places is actually the bit that lies behind Dimmingsdale Bank. Area there that is just constant.
Kate, can I come in on that, please? Yeah, I think there's something very relevant to this. Right, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Kate, for listening to and passing on to Marie Brown, who I'd thanked if she was here, the fact that positioning of bins needs to be local people saying where the worst problems are. Shopkeepers will tell you, if you take trouble to talk to them, that a bin 3 foot out of line with the main walkways into the shop means that people will walk straight past the bin and chuck it on the floor. So thank you for the 2 bins that you organised. Well, 3. The one at Highfield, the one outside of Woodhouse entrance onto Ridgeacre, because that used to be a wheelie bin, but we haven't had a bin there for ages. And the one particularly by Tennell Drive, which has about 40 odd houses in it, and is walking rubbish by the bus stop. So thank you for that. It makes a big difference. Wherever I walk, I pick stuff up and drop it in the next bin. And certainly it's been a godsend having those bins where they are. So that's that one.
Also pops, just tell you, we've also done one by the Quinton Expressway, bus stop out, bus stop, and we've done one. I don't know whether it's arrived yet for Jackson's Way in Old Quinton. Right.
The second one is Highfield, the Highfield Roundabout, where the Christmas tree is, the shops there up from Fordy's. That is an absolute disgrace. The last time I walked past, it literally is building up right in the gutter on all those shop fronts. I've no answer to litter picking, because I don't think organised litter picks are the answer, or individuals like me, because if I go away for a fortnight, I come back and the rubbish is still there. So I don't know what the answer is. It's such a problem, other than somebody employed in Quinton to go and sort rubbish out. I mean, by sort it out, I mean talk about it. I mean all of it, picking it up as well. So
yeah, I'll give you an anecdote. When I was teaching, people used to say to me, "Don't you talk to the children about dropping litter?" And we used to say constantly, and the kids would not drop litter in front of the staff The minute you turned your back,
Yep.
turned back, the litter would be on the floor. I remember did assembly once because we were paying, I think in my school, it's the biggest school in Europe, but it was over £30,000 a year to pick up the litter in the school. You know, the extra crews we had to have on after lunchtime. It's heartbreaking, isn't it?
But again, you've got to win minds over here. And I think, like, when you put deaths on this road, 95 deaths on this road, 5 people fined 900 quid for dumping rubbish on this road. Put leaflets up saying it costs £30,000 a year in Quinton to pick up the crap.
Yeah.
That could be £30,000 providing facilities.
That was a school. That was one school, Barry. So
Yeah.
we can do that, and we did have some success. We put a lot of the signs. I don't know whether you saw them. Don't be a tosser. Did you see any of those that we
No.
put up?
Where was that?
Oh, they were out and about. We couldn't get as many as we wanted, but they were quite a nice. You know, they kind of raised a little bit of a smile.
Yeah.
If I may, Kate,
Mm-hmm.
quick question. Sitting in the queues at the bottom of Quinton Expressway around the roundabout,
Mm-hmm.
and then along Quinton Expressway where you have the pull-in, where they used to have the bus stop. I agree wholeheartedly that the people causing the litter should be picking it up. I do agree going back to the schools and tasking them to be part of the clean-up and putting the emphasis on that. But with all the visiting drivers and chucking things out the window, is there a way that we can actually have some sort of monitoring and the signs to tell them they're being monitored for them? This just chucking it out? Because to be honest, a sign saying take your litter home, they're not working. It is disgusting, the amount of litter there.
Melanie, it's a national and Dina, who spent Peter spent a delightful afternoon with me once, removing 2-litre bottles of urine from that area where lorry drivers think it must be lorry drivers. They've got to be men. I'm saying that they're not women. Are just filling bottles of urine and then just chucking them out of the window. I mean,
it's disgusting, but it's also down on the roundabout when they're queuing to get on and off.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the actual cost to clean that up, if you put that aside, the high risk, because I've been seeing people on their own back wearing high vis, and they look like residents, and some aren't wearing anything, picking up the litter.
They should be on those roundabouts and close on those.
No, I appreciate that, but I also appreciate the frustration where they're trying to do their bit. But the danger to official workers, let alone unofficial workers, to pick that up, is there nothing we can do to raise it from just a sign to, say, some sort of active monitoring cameras?
What I'll do is I'll have with the cabinet member for the scene and parks, so I'll have a word with John O'Shea.
Because that would be a safety, that would come under a safety for the work, for the actual employees.
Yeah, it's a city-wide issue. It's a national issue.
Councillor Booth.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Okay.
Booth, you only have about 15 minutes left to go.
Yeah, whizzing through. I think we're kind of doing our council update as we're doing this, aren't we? So, 5 campaigns against dogfiling. I have got in touch with the fabulous Alicia Wingfield, who is the lady who lives in Sandwell, who came out and does the lovely thing where you go down an area and you put down stencils, and then you spray the stencils, and it's got big arrows pointing to dog food, and you circle it in bright pink or bright green. So she's got back to me. She's really keen to do that. So I will set something up. So if anybody wants to send big areas where there's a lot of dog food, I'll get Alicia and her team over, and we'll do a couple of sessions in Quinton to address that.
Can I add very, very briefly on the dog mess issue? One of the problems that I've had is actually which departments will provide dog waste bins. So as I understand it, highways won't provide them. And quite often the places that we need them are on public footpaths next to roads in places like Jackson Way, where there's a lot of footfall. And I'm trying to work out how we can get around the issue that highways won't provide the dog fouling bins, but that's ongoing.
Yeah, I think they just generally, if they go into a litter bin, there's not a problem. But we're waiting on a litter bin for Jackson Way for that very reason. So if we go on to 3B, protection and improvement of ward assets, buildings, allotments, parks and green spaces. 1, investigate what can be done to support the Quinborn. I've had a meeting with the Quinborn, who seemed quite happy with their business plan and the way they were working. I don't know if you've spoken to them at all, Dominic. You're on mute.
Thank you. I'm actually sat in the Quinborn right now, and I've had quite a few meetings with Carl, the manager, and I have to say that from where we started last year, being concerned that it wasn't necessarily a community hub, I am entirely persuaded that it's running as a very, very effective centre, and I know that they're back at full tilt with all of the groups that are in. Post-February half term, they're launching a whole range of new beginner access courses, which range from everything with yoga, beginners arts classes, and very, very excitingly from my perspective, a back to work course program as well for support with people getting to work.
Sounds like at a bad pandemic time, then it was, and it sounds like they're recovering. So let's hope we're on
So
the
that's
road.
closed, isn't it? Again?
Yeah, I think close that.
Okie dokie. Quinton Library returns pre-COVID opening days and times. As far as I'm aware, it is. The one thing I haven't looked at is the bit around community librarians. So I will do that because I haven't done it. Dominic, have you done anything about that?
No, I know that they're still short of volunteers.
Okay, so what I will do is I'll have a chat with them. I go in and do the project with the woolly mammoth sewing. So the next time I'm in there, I'll have a word with the library manager. 3, 4 dwellings children's centre. Oh, right. I put a major complaint in about the children's the building and the area. It was absolutely shocking. It had been broken into again. It was just full of litter. It was dangerous. They have cleaned it up. I've been told that it's going to be demolished and then it will be put up for sale. I've asked for an update, but I haven't had one. But I went to have a look at it the other day. It was looking a lot smarter, a lot neater. The only issue was that the burnt out motorbike that was on no name is now sitting at the front of the old children's centre. But the place is pretty much litter free. It's not the horrendous eyesore that it was, but I've asked for an update on that. My thoughts are the plan was to demolish and then put it up for sale, but I haven't had an update. Quinton Police Station.
Kate,
yeah.
Kate, sorry to add to what you're talking about the children's centre. I was talking to Kerry the other day and another lady up at Dimmingsdale, and apparently there is a much increased rat presence that where they're in the streets during the day, running around, can be actively seen. Obviously, that derelict children's centre is a potential.
There's nothing in there. It's been sealed off. There's nothing. What would attract the rats would be the shops.
Well, something's. I mean, it's been a very mild winter, really. But the fact that rats are active, running around and quite regularly, quite in numbers, means that area needs looking at by the health people, because normally rat activity increases when you've got a broken manhole or a drain because they're coming up from the drains, but also derelict buildings or empty buildings. It's quite concerning that is so obvious. We all get rats. You're never far from a rat. So, but the fact that they said that there's a lot of activity up there, something needs to be done about that area.
That's actually on that site, is it?
Well, no, but it's Dimmingsdale obviously is at the back of it.
Right.
Well, why can't the person who told you that ring up the council men themselves? Why do the councillors have to do everybody's dirty work?
Yeah, I mean the service is free. So if you just make sure people know, if it's rats, the service is free. It's a free service. So
I raised the issue, Claire, because when you've got derelict buildings, it can be a problem.
I think me and Kate can both report that. We've only got 8 minutes, so if we can just carry on with the plan.
But yeah, so just to everybody, if people want to report rats, it's done.
Yeah.
Right, 3C, parks, green, open spaces. We've had a good chat about this. So we've got phase 3 plan with survey using the park. So does anybody want to say anything about local walking groups?
Sorry, where are we?
We're on 3C now, leisure parks, green and open
Oh,
space.
sorry, it's on the police station.
I think you skipped the police station.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. My apologies. Oh, I flipped through that, didn't I? Yes, we had that down as Elaine was going to look at that. I discussed this with Tracy Gill. She's working on it and she's promised that she'll try and get us an update for the next ward forum. So I'll make sure that Preet brings that, or if Preet can't, perhaps someone from our office can come along and give us an update there.
If I can jump in, as far as I'm aware, it's due to be sold this spring, which doesn't really leave us time for the next ward forum to have an update. I wrote to
my
the Peace and Crime
understanding,
Commissioner
Lauren might be able to add something, but my understanding Preet was looking at it.
I wrote to the PCC expressing our concern that the building was going to be sold and asking him to support a plan for a community hub, which I know is something which I've looked at, Kate's looked at, Preet's looked at over various points, and the response I got back was a lot of waffle, but no actual commitment. But he has said that he's happy to meet with us on site. So I'm going to try and arrange a meeting with a cross-party meeting to discuss the proposals and try and stop it from being sold.
Okie dokie, that's great. Thanks for that. So sorry, now on to 3C. I'm just trying to get ahead of myself here. Highfield Farm Recreation Ground. Anything on that? Larry, did you want to add anything?
Clearly, the survey was carried out. The parts survey were turned into a bid, which is now in the Celebrating Communities Fund. So in that sense, we've done what's wanted. We are struggling to get other costings. Sue Amy's department is overwhelmed, and we'll have to see how that goes.
Okay, so, and we're hoping that there will be a meeting in the next few weeks to sort those grants out, and I'm hoping it'll be an in-person meeting.
Can I just add something to that, Kate?
Yeah, of course.
Again, one of the major problems with Highfield is it's out of sight and out of mind to a lot of Quinton. I know that by walking around and advertising it. I'm going to be using the notice boards and the shops that I've got contact with to put up what's up there with encouragement for the future. Also, in March, I will be trying to, as I've said for years, try to reprise the Quinton Little League lads who are now dads.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so just to say that is in the offing. Steve Williams, are you still there? Oh, okay. It's all right. I need to talk to Steve. I'll talk to Beverly. I'll email you because I need Steve's email or he needs mine.
I can send it to you, Barry.
Sorry?
I can send you Steve's details.
Yes, please.
Should we put that into the green forum and the meeting, which is the next point, Kate?
Yeah, and also I went down and spoke to Andy Craddock from the wheelchair basketball to try and link him with the new youth club at the Quimborne, and also to have a walk and talk about doing an event on the Mooga.
Right.
Okay.
That's good. Okay, number 2, I've got the meeting. I don't know whether this is just me, but Dominic, I've got on my bit, DS to set up a meeting. So are you going to put that together?
Yeah, we'll do that.
That's great. Number 3 was tree planting. So we've had lots of actions. We had lots of actions around Highfield Farm recreation ground. We've already had
200 trees,
one tranche of trees in. We've talked about the other tranche of trees, and there's also some work going on looking at the area which is the unattached playing fields, which are a little bit further down the valley. Was previously owned by Education. I know there's some plans there to look at tree planting there, and then there's this whole idea of the tiny forest there. So priority 4, I'm really whizzing through this. Residents can be feed issues for potholes and pavement repairs. Tree works directly to the highway steward for Quinton. So Stuart was here today. We talked about using the Street Watch group as a reporting mechanism. We've talked about encouraging the use of Fix My Street, better use of notice boards, Facebooks, etc. I think that's just going to be an ongoing thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. To hold local resident reviews with the Quinton Highways steward. Well, I know you're off out with Stuart next week, and I'm off out with Stuart next week. So we haven't got the full-time new contract for highways in. So we will be working with Stuart while we move forward on that one. 3, reintroduce longer term planned highways maintenance road improvement. Mark, again, not in place yet. Again, we've got Keir, we've got Stuart.
Yeah.
So we can keep on doing that, and he keeps on coming. Electric car charging points, policy and installation. If you have a look at the Birmingham City Council website, there are papers on there about rapid charging networks. So that work is ongoing. Cycle paths and routes. As a cyclist, I'm afraid I haven't done anything about that. So I don't know if anybody else have. I mean, I've done some work with people who've complained about cycle paths being blocked by cars and things like that, and I've dealt with that. But I haven't actually done anything about promoting other people to cycling and developing new routes to signage.
I touched on the engagement I'm having with the active travel commissioner at the
Yeah.
moment, and cycling and that route into Woodgate Valley is one of the key things that I'm looking at.
Great. Quinton Road West to be resurfaced. We said remedial work done on the 24th of the 1st, 22.
No, it's in the plan, isn't it?
In March. Sorry?
The resurfacing's in the plan, we've just been told.
Yeah, that's right. Simmons Drive, Dwellings Lane, Highfield speed cushions, done and dusted.
Completed.
Priority 5, community cohesion and engagement, ward forums. I think we've got quite a good turnout tonight.
I think COVID has scuppered us slightly in terms of meetings moving online, in person, all that kind of stuff. So once
just to apologise to people, this one was put in place when we were told we couldn't meet. Now we've been told, I think, that we can. So we're hoping that the next one in March will be in person. Pioneer Neighbourhood Mentor Scheme with Northfield, right? So I don't know how we're going to continue with this one. We need to find a way of doing it. Following the disbanding of the Quinton Reference Group or the Active Quinton Group, there's now no entity to take that forward at the moment. I'll maybe have a word with Gateway Family Services to see if there's anything they can do with that. Best of Quinton event. Don't know where we are with that one, but we did debate at length the Best of Birmingham event, which will be, I think, around neighbourhoods in Birmingham. So that might actually get encompassed by that. Barry, Elliot, did you want to say anything about the Best of Quinton?
I've not heard of the Best of Birmingham event. I may have missed it.
Hot news last night.
Check the Birmingham Mail.
Yeah, well, so I've not heard of the. Barry and I are sort of girding up our loins to see if we can get this going. We've got a number of problems to get through. Obviously, as Sue Amy illustrated, we need a lot of contribution from parks because we have to pass through their system. But we're going to have a go and see if we can get the directory done and start to bring people together.
Can I propose that we revisit the Quinton conversation as a standalone meeting to discuss that?
If we can first of all find some people to help us, yes, quite. I would think that's a good way. And Phil's sitting there waiting to be asked, I think.
Okay, I'm going really, really quick now. Look at the options for councils like paperwork and neighbourhoods. We haven't done anything on that at the moment. I'm moving now very swiftly on to housing and private rented sector. Housing department to employees, tidy up properties, etc. So I regularly attend the Quinton Housing Liaison Board meetings and walkabouts. At the moment, we do have some issues with the Quinton Housing Liaison Board around officer support, and also we don't have a permanent chair, but I regularly go to those each month and I go on the walkabouts as well.
I'd only add that
annual meetings with housing officers and housing liaison board to feedback on issues and monitor exempt accommodation. There was a paper that was put to council on exempt accommodation and a report from overview and scrutiny. So I have forwarded that to the person who is presently chairing the Quinton Housing Liaison Board. I don't think the Quinton Housing Liaison Board, in fact, I know they won't be, the chair to see what we can do. I now chair Homes and Neighbourhoods Overview and Scrutiny. So I'll very much take that on. And I know Preet Corgill and myself are collating a register of exempt accommodation, but I was dealing with a problem with exempt accommodation only this morning in my surgery. Liaise with Gateway ends in schools about current provision for young people and develop a priority plan. I've got nothing to add to that at the moment. Have you, Dominic?
Youth people generally, this is going to be my update, but yes, we have launched a brand new youth club at the Quimborne, which is running every week on a Wednesday evening, 6 till 8 for 11 to 15-year-olds. It only costs £1 for admission. We are still recruiting volunteers and trying to publicise so that more children come along. We've currently got between 10 and 15 young people coming each week. Which is fantastic. And we're looking to build and expand that as well. So I haven't organised any meetings or developed a priority plan, but I've set up a youth club.
Great, that's fantastic. To further develop social prescribing with partners, GPs. Okay, so we haven't got the Quinton reference group anymore, so there's no entity at the moment to take that forward. But I know Gateway are doing some work with that. So 8, mobility strategy. I've got no updates on that. And 9, sustainability. I've got no updates on that.
I'm lobbying for electric buses on the 23 and 24 routes.
Oh, yes.
With widespread councillor support along the entire route.
Yeah, I mean, that's both those services are fantastic, the 23 and the 24. I think we need to draw that to a close now. So, Phil, can I pass back to you as chair?
Please? Can I ask one question? Will the plan now be updated with the latest status in the right-hand column?
Yes. So what we're going to do is I'll send my thing that I've just kind of read off to Beverly. Beverly has been taking notes. Dominic, if you've got anything, can you send that to Beverly? We'll make sure it all gets done and it gets a little kind of update box there.
Yes.
Councillors, can I just ask? It's got to be a Word version. So if you've got a Word, send it to me and I'll do it and I'll send it back to you to make sure that I've got everything. Okay.
That'll also be the opportunity Beverly wanted to take the word draft off of the.
Oh, I know, but yes, yeah, it is what it is. So just let me have it, and then I'll do what I can from my end and send it back to you.
I'll send you mine, Beverly. I've done what I've done in red, so you'll be able to.
So that's my weekend sorted out then.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just ask, please, with respect to 7 and the walking routes and integrate with Future Parks Accelerator, is that going to be possible given that the Future Parks Accelerator doesn't exist anymore?
I think it's been extended until March.
Sorry?
I think it's been extended to March because there was a hold on it during COVID. So I think it has actually been extended to March. And then it will be.
How long is it going to be?
Until March, I think. And then until March. And then
until March. Right. Okay. So what?
I think the new parts, the new thing on Birmingham City of Nature 25-year strategy, the 1,000 green spaces will take over from that, I think.
And what is it exactly meant by integrate with Future Parks Accelerator?
Well, I really do want to finish now, please, because I would love Melanie to be able to give us a quick update on what's been happening. Yeah, is that okay?
Thank you.
So, Phil, the last thing on the agenda is normally for residents to do an update, and I was very keen, if we can, for Melanie to just tell us a little bit about what she and the other residents of Bonclay and Chichester Drive have been dealing with.
Yes, please, Melanie, if you'd like to update us, that'd be fantastic.
Okay. I think you're aware about the issue.
You didn't want to answer my question, Veen.
Sorry, you're aware about with the trees, etc., and the habitat being demolished at the back of our houses from Clay Drive up to Village Mews. That light in the background, by the way, that's not in my garden. That's the motorway light. that you can see illuminating our homes. Thankfully, you can't hear the noise I can hear. What we've tried to do is raise awareness through different forums, through both our councillors and through Preet's office, which I'm very grateful of. I understand Birmingham Mail did a follow-up story in the last 48 hours. I've got an awful lot of residents who are getting increasingly frustrated and angry about what highways have done and the lack of movement to do anything. As it stands at the moment, we're waiting for outcome of feedback from Preet's office to the responses National Grid have given to her. They won't speak to me. In fact, they actually laughed at me when I asked them about the complaints procedure. Highways have been a little bit more professional, although they still haven't given any information. The only thing that we know for sure from them, as of last Thursday, when they came here to meet some of the residents with both our councillors and Preet, was that they admitted they hadn't followed due process, and they had not, as the landowners, done the due diligence, and they hadn't done their impact assessments. So we can only assume that any, well, I can only assume then that any report that National Grid have done, they're probably writing right now. So as it stands at the moment, there is still no protection from noise, from light, from fumes, to the more than 50 homes directly that run on the back of the M5. And there's over 300 families on this estate, and all of them are noticing all the way up through Quinton High Street the increase in noise. I've had people turning up at my door. I've got one gentleman who's terminal, and he's at my door coming in and he's in tears. I'm having to take a lot of flack from different people, from multimedia sources as well, which is quite nasty, but also from residents who are angry. No consultation and the lack of seeming responsibility. I'm trying my best to get some sort of forward motion with the help of both our councillors and Preet's office. There's an awful lot of individuals doing their own thing as well. But like I've heard on a few things, asking for help and for volunteers, I'm not really getting a lot of joy with coming together to form an action group. And without an action group, as Beverly took time to explain to me, there's little or nothing I can do to get any help financially, or even try to get help financially to print leaflets or put things out there to keep people together and keep them moving forward. So as it stands at the moment, other than what you may have seen on the news or read in the newspapers, I don't actually have anything more constructive to be able to give you. Other than I'm, kind of struggling a little bit to get some forward motion in a constructive and a concise sort of manner.
Melanie, can I just come in quickly? Sorry, it's Lauren. So we had a call from National Grid today. So I know they are sort of following up on things. So we have asked them to make sure that they're speaking to National Highways and coming up with a joint response of how they're going to rectify the situation that they can bring to that meeting that we mentioned for Christchurch, and for residents, so that they can hear the proposals and we can sort of hold them to account and make sure that it's the right response.
Okay, but from what point is it a as it stands on there's been zero consultation anyway. They just went ahead and did it, and now we've got we're very sorry, but their responses, as in proposals, do we know whether or not those proposals are going to be full and final? Is there going to be any action for them to take account? Because the actions of National Grid and highways as general, it seems to be that the size of them, they across Birmingham, wherever they are, they do what they want, when they want, to suit themselves, and the only time they ever take any action is if there's someone like myself or a group of people like yourselves in the different areas who are willing to put their heads above the parapet, take the flak and push the matter on. There doesn't seem any accountability for them. And I've tried through Birmingham Council to get accountability, and there's none. There's nothing to do there.
So I know my colleague, when she was speaking to National Grid, was sort of relaying sort of Preet's criteria for sort of what she was expecting, sort of following the meeting that we had in person just last week. So they know what Preet is expecting and what we're sort of, the ballpark at least for where that conversation should at least start from. And so what we have said to them is it needs to be a conversation, not just here it is sort of thing.
Okay.
So
and if I can build briefly on that as well, Lauren, Melanie, sorry to interrupt. I'm now stood in a car park on my mobile. I hope you can hear me. I have put out a petition again with Connor, which has now got over 150 signatures, which is going to National Highways, which has 5 clear steps that we want, mitigation measures. And I've had a very conciliatory email today from National Highways project manager, who has, he seems to be in the right place in terms of engaging with us properly and actually looking at how we can rectify the situation. So I'll update on that as soon as I've got any more.
Okay. One of the things I would like to come from this is if we take it into Birmingham is maybe, and I've got a note to try and speak to Sue at some point later, is rather than keep planting new, how do we look after what we've already got? Whether it's on waste ground, which I acknowledge belongs to Highways England, or whether it's to a big corporation, but it's still green, it's still all connected. How do we look after what we've got rather than keep planting, trying to reinvent and plant new? That's where that's one of the things I'd like to be able to answer coming from this. I'm open to.
So I think one of the things there is the issue is over different bodies with different ownership of land.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Dominic,
I don't know how to answer Dominic in the sense from ownership point of view, but where.
So the only point that I was trying to make is that Sue Amy is responsible for Birmingham Parks, so that's one strategy, and then we have to deal with National Highways for the National Highways owned land on the M5. Yeah,
but it's something that's taking up too much of our time, which really we shouldn't have to. If there is a way of constructively monitoring this and looking after what we've got already going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so cut a long story short, I'm working with a climate change storytelling gentleman, Josh Nico. He's also following a line from the environmental sort of aspect, climate change, how it makes you feel with mental health. So there's a lot of questions about mental health in the area. If anyone has got or knows of any action groups to help with mental health, I'm sure there's a lot of residents here that would welcome, especially the elderly ones, would welcome some assistance.
Mm-hmm.
Melanie, I can point you in the direction of a group that used to be based at Quimborne, so I'll speak to you about that on Thursday or Friday this week.
Okay, not a problem. But as I say, so cut a long story short, I am sort of taking the lead on this, but there are a lot of people on the estate who are doing their own thing as well. And between Dominic and Kate have done a fabulous job of trying to coordinate it and push it together in a forward motion, and I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you. I mean, I looking at the time, it's now 20:46. Yeah. We've massively overrun for this meeting. Yeah. I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening. I'd like to draw this meeting to a close. I'm sorry if I'm not able to.
Can we just say when the next meeting is?
Absolutely,
so just
yes.
Very quickly, hoping it's going to be the 16th of March.
You beat me to it, Kate.
Sorry?
You beat me to it. I was just going.
Oh, great. Sorry. And we're hoping it's going to be in real person, real time, real face to face.
I hope so.
And if I can just say a very big thank you to Phil for doing an excellent job of chairing the meeting again, which is massively appreciated from our perspective. Helps to keep us councillors from talking over each other.
Well, you do a fantastic job, both of you. So I like you both.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, sorry, the very final thing which we should mention as well. Obviously, we know that we've got the Commonwealth Games Celebrating Communities grant coming up, and we've got a few applicants. I know a couple that have been mentioned this evening, that we will have to have a specific ward meeting to assess those grants and to vote on whether we want to approve them or not. So we'll get a date in that ASAP, but we're going to do that separately to the ward forum, only because of the amount of bulk and amount of time that that's going to take. So we'll keep everyone posted on that as soon as we've got a date.
Thank you very much, Kay. Thank you everybody for coming this evening, and look forward to seeing you all on the 16th of March.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Phil. Goodbye, everybody.
Fantastic
Thanks,
evening.
guys.
Thank you, everyone.